Sony continues to dominate the top 10 camera sales at Yodobashi Camera. Nikon performs well with 3 cameras in the top 10. Fujifilm makes an appearance. But the main reason you're likely watching this video is to find out about Canon. Is Canon ready to completely open up their RF mount? And will this improve their sales numbers? But first, subscribe to this channel for a chance to win a Canon EOS R5. I'll be giving one away to one lucky subscriber once this channel reaches 100,000 subscribers. Anyone above the age of 18 with a valid mailing address is eligible. Additional terms and conditions are linked in the description down below. Yodobashi Camera is the 4th largest Japanese camera retailer with 28 stores. They publish their sales data every 2 weeks, giving us something to talk about on a lazy Sunday. And yes, I know it's Monday, but you see, yesterday was Thanksgiving, where we spent it celebrating with our family, so you're getting this information one day late. I'm not even going to tease you. I'm not going to draw this out. Sony continues to dominate not only the top 10, but the top 3. And in first place, you're not going to be surprised to hear that the Sony a7 IV is once again in first place. And this time around, in second place, we have the Sony a7 IV, only this time with a kit package. It's just absolutely incredible. This camera started shipping late last year. That's almost a year ago, and it's been in the top 10 position, not only in Japan, but in North America for much of that, well, existence, a year. And to show up consistently in the top 10 tells us one thing very clearly: regardless of what you think of Sony, pro or con, the a7 IV is their top selling camera, selling way better than the a7 III ever did, and of course way better than other cameras such as the a7C or its successors, the a7C II, the a7CR, or even the a6700, which spoilers, isn't even showing up in the top 10. Neither are the 2 recent updates to the a7C. So yeah, congrats Sony, you've got a real big winner on your hands here. Who knows when? I wonder, and I'd like to have your thoughts in the comment section down below. When is the a7 IV going to get dethroned? Will it be with an announcement from the competition, such as the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, the R1, or could it be a Sony release of the successor to the a7 IV, the a7 V? Fujifilm makes an appearance in 3rd place with the X-T5. Announced in December last year as a successor to the X-T4, a camera aimed at photographers more than videographers. It's capable of shooting 20 frames per second and up to 160 megapixels with pixel shift. The Canon EOS R6 Mark II comes in at 4th. It increases the resolution over the Mark I to 24 megapixels. It can shoot up to 40 frames per second electronic and 12 frames per second mechanical. It does have dual SD card slots, an improvement over the R8, much improved video capabilities, and greatly improved overheating suffered by the Mark I. The Canon EOS R6 Mark II is everything the Mark I should have been. The lack of overheating, the improved video capabilities, the improved, resolution of the R6 Mark II to 24 megapixels from 20 megapixels is a definite plus. But the real big plus to this camera is that the Mark II, in US dollars, doesn't cost any more than the Mark I. Now you might be saying, hey, in Australia, New Zealand, in Europe, that's not the case, and that's true. If your currency has lost against the US dollar, well then your price will have gone up for the Mark II, and that price will have gone up commensurate to how well you performed against the US dollar. If your currency's gone up against the US dollar, well, congratulations, you might have seen it actually go down in price. The R50 is the best affordable Canon camera. It has the same resolution as the R6 Mark II, the same image processor, and it has an ISO range of between 100 and 32,000, extendable to 51,200. It can shoot up to 15 frames per second, although you've got it for a second. After that, the buffer's full. And in terms of video, you can shoot 6K over sampled 4K, all for the price of $679. It also has computational photography capabilities, one of the first Canon cameras to actually have it. I think for $679, the Canon EOS R50 is a very solid camera. The only cautions I would have on this camera is look at all the lenses to see that you've got enough lenses to purchase if you want to grow with this camera anywhere outside of the kit lenses. And you should also consider taking a look at the Sony ZV-E10. It's in the same price point and the same market as the Canon EOS R50. The Sony a7 R5 comes in at 5th place with a 61 megapixel sensor, the best implementation of pixel shift and a very nicely designed 4-axis LCD. And this 4-axis LCD, that's something I'd like to see Canon and other manufacturers bring to their upcoming cameras. The Canon EOS R5 is supposed to have an improvement, but we don't know what that improvement is going to be over the LCD. Better resolution, a 4-axis LCD, or even the Canon EOS R1, the Panasonic S1H Mark II, or the Nikon Z6 Mark III. Now the Z8 didn't get that 4-axis LCD articulating flip screen the same as what we see in the Sony, so it's unlikely we're going to see it in the Z6 Mark III. But what I really like about this is when I'm in full-on video mode, I like being able to flip the LCD out, and when I don't, I can fold it in, look through the EVF. But when I'm shooting video, when I'm shooting the moon, when I'm shooting wildlife, and I've got that 100 to 500 millimeter on there, or the 800 millimeter, when you flip that LCD out, looking through here while your lens line of sight is here, doesn't work very well. So for photographers and videographers, when we're shooting with, well, telephoto lenses, having an LCD that can actually extend outward from the camera, allowing us to look up in a direct line of sight or out to the side, fold it in, have it flush against the camera. Sony, with the A7R5, I think you've done a terrific job with that LCD, so much so that I'm focusing on that rather than the other capabilities such as your AI chip, the resolution, the video 8K, I was going to say 4K, 8K at 24 and 25 frames per second with a 1.2 times crop, and also your pixel shift, the best implementation of pixel shift. Not only can you shoot up to what, 200, 240 frames per second, sorry, 200 to 240 megapixels, but you can do so with motion, with vehicles moving, with people moving, and without producing any artifacts. And today, here in 2023, I'm not sure of another camera that can do that. The Nikon Z8 shows up in 7th place. And yes, 7th place, not 1st place, not 2nd place or 3rd place. And you might be wondering, well, is the Nikon Z8 losing its, well, shine? Is it becoming tarnished? Are people being less enthralled by it? And based on the sales figures from what I'm seeing, that's certainly not the case. In fact, Nikon still has problems getting enough Nikon Z8s out the door, which is resulting in, well, lower sales numbers, because if you can't get the camera in the store, you can't put it on the shelf and people can't purchase it. The Nikon Z8 to me is, if I didn't have the Canon EOS R5, if the Canon EOS R5 wasn't on the market, I'd be owning the Nikon Z8. I really do like the Sony a7S III. I think it's a terrific camera. But here in 2023, I look at the Nikon Z8 with its stacked 45 megapixel stacked full frame sensor, capable of doing 8K up to 60 frames per second, 20 frames per second lossless RAW with really good dynamic range, a good try that again, a good low light performance, or what I'm trying to say here is low noise, low light, better low light performance. See, I can't always get the words out, and instead of just doing all these cuts, I'm trying something new and just trying to go with it and see how well it goes. But the Nikon Z8 is a terrific camera. If Nikon can produce a few more of these cameras, we can start to see it show up a little bit further in the list. The Nikon ZF was recently announced, but it's the Nikon ZF-C that comes in at 8th place and the Nikon Z50 in 10th place. And in 9th place, we have another Sony. It's the Sony a7C. Yeah, just the a7C, not the a7C II and not the a7CR. Despite the a7C II and the a7CR being announced just a little while ago. I'm a little bit surprised by that, but actually, no, I'm not. When I look at the a7C II and the a7CR and the price that Sony wants for these two cameras, what, $21.99 and $29.99? I look at the a7C around $1,700 going on sale every now and then for $200 off, and I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe you can help me in the comment section down below. I don't see the point to the a7C II. If I was in the market for a camera and I was looking at around this $2,200 price point, I wouldn't buy the a7C II. I would buy the a7 IV, the camera that's in 1st and 2nd place, the camera that's always in 1st place. And there's a reason for that. The camera has a great set of video and stills capabilities. And it's $2,400, $200 more than the a7C II. And I think a lot of people are looking at the a7C II, then they're taking a look at the a7C IV, the a7C, and if budget is an issue, then it's the a7C. But if money isn't such a a constraint, then yeah, for $200 more, you got the a7 IV. So I'm not really surprised we don't see the A7C II or the A7CR. I think what Sony's trying to do is just fill as many holes as possible. If you were to see the roadmap of Sony cameras over the last year or two, you'd be shocked to see the number of cameras that are out. But let's turn our attention to Canon. Canon only has 2 cameras in the top 10. The Canon EOS R6 Mark II, which I think makes an awful lot of sense, as well as the Canon EOS R50, a very solid, very good camera produced by Canon for $679. But where's the Canon EOS R5, the Canon EOS R3, the 1DX Mark III, cameras that just 6 to 7 months ago were dominating the top 10. We saw them in the top 5 positions, the top 3, and now, well, we haven't seen them for months. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is, if you're following my channel, then you know that the Canon EOS R5 Mark II is going to be announced sometime early next year, and most likely right around CP+. The Canon EOS R1 is also due out next year, and a whole host of Canon RF lenses as well as RFS lenses. So there's the anticipation of new bodies, but there's also lenses. That's right, third-party lenses. Sony Alpha Rumors has it from a reliable source that
they will open officially their RF mount to third-party lens manufacturers. This will happen by end of the year. And this is coming from a source that I trust. It's only one source, so until I don't have confirmation by other sources
by the end of the year, by the end of 2023, see, it's already October. That gives us just 3 months left, including this month here, to actually open up the RF mount. Well, now technically Canon has opened up the RF mount for third-party lens makers to make lenses on a case-by-case basis. And well, we've seen how well that's gone, haven't we? We've gotten what? 2 lenses announced, and only one of them is going to ship probably in about a week now. So that statement that Canon has made saying that they're opening the amount and you just need permission, and yeah, we all know where that's gone. We've seen only a couple of lenses, but according to Sony Alpha Rumors, they do have a source, a well-known, a trusted source that is telling them that this is happening, that it's going to be coming this year, that before the end of 2023, Canon's going to open up the RF mount in the same way that Sony opened up the E mount. That would be a big deal. But, and this is a big but here, this is why I have put out a video previously, because I've been trying to validate this information, to get other sources. The Camera Insider hasn't come out with a story on this. Canon Rumors hasn't come out with a story on this. All the credible sites that normally cover Canon information, including this one here, we haven't been able to validate this. And Andrea, the editorial director and owner of Sony Alpha Rumors, well, he hasn't been able to validate this either. All Sony Alpha Rumors has is from one trusted, reliable source, and that's enough that usually when he says this, he's pretty bang on. All of his stories where he said it comes from a trusted source has proved to be true. And even I predicted about a year and a half ago that we could see Canon open up the mount by the end of 2023, but even I haven't seen any information to indicate that that's going to happen. If it is going to happen, I would expect the announcements to come with, well, a whole bunch of new lenses, RF and RFS lenses. And we are supposed to get a boatload of them, some 8 to 10 lenses over the next several months. Some of them affordable glass and some of them high-end glass, like the 200 to 800 millimeter. Yep, 200 to 800 millimeter, 200 to 500 millimeter, and hopefully finally that RF 35 millimeter f1.2. But there are some issues. There are some issues with this coming to pass, and for Canon to play hardball for some time to protect their intellectual property, and that is a right that they have, to then all of a sudden, after a year and a half of saying, yeah, we're going to approve it on a case-by-case basis, to then all of a sudden open up the mount completely, it seems a little bit odd. But I do get it. I do get both sides of this. I understand the frustration of not having certain lens focal lengths and apertures that Sigma and Tamron quite often produce at, well, apertures and focal lengths that Canon doesn't really address. And we see a lot of that. But at the same point, I also understand from a support standpoint, it can be a challenge. As soon as Canon opens up the mount, they start dealing with support issues that could be related to, well, the lens or a firmware update. That is the responsibility of the lens manufacturer, creating more demands on Canon's support resources. So I do certainly understand that, but there's a way of doing this, and I don't disagree with them having an approval process, but at least let us in on what you're planning and when we can expect to see Sigma and Tamron. And have companies say, look, we want you to produce lenses for our RF mount, the R system, and here's the terms. Do you like it or not? If you don't like it, tough, you can't make it, and if you do, and that can help address some of the support issues. It can also help Canon protect some of their lenses, but if we look at Canon's lens lineup, well, we see an awful lot of L-series high-end glass, and these aren't the lenses that are typically addressed by Sigma and Tamron. They generally address the market price point of around $599 to $1599. They deal with that affordable glass section and they move up into the mid-price point, but rarely do they go north of $2,000, and certainly they don't approach $10,000, let alone $16,000. So I do hope that Canon is getting ready to open up the third-party lens mount. Sorry, let me try that again. Open up their lens mount to third parties, and if that's going to happen, we could expect some sort of announcement later this year, in October, in November, or maybe sometime in next year. But again, it's not what I consider a credible or a validated rumor, but to hear noise about it nonetheless, I think is a good thing. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera gear, news, and rumors, then please go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications. Not only does it help keep you informed about what's going on, but it really helps my channel get noticed, and I'd appreciate if you did that. And if you want to stay up to date on all the minor news and rumors, pricing information, firmware updates, all those news stories that aren't quite big enough to have their own separate video, then go ahead and follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter. And if you're looking at purchasing gear on Amazon.com, B&H or Adorama, Amazon, yep, those three, these ones right here, then please consider using my affiliate links because I get anywhere from 2 to 12% back, which really does help fund this channel. I'm going to be purchasing the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1. And if revenue for the last part of this year and the first quarter of next year really does start to show up, then I'm going to look at purchasing a Nikon, maybe the Nikon Z8, maybe the Nikon Z6 Mark III, depending on what it's going to be. But I want to move off into other platforms and give this channel a bit more of a reach instead of just shooting with Canon cameras. But that's it for now. Have yourself a great, well, I guess the weekend's almost over. I have a holiday tomorrow because tomorrow is actually Thanksgiving, but most of us celebrate it on Sunday, which is today, but it's Monday for you. So if you're in Canada, have yourself a happy Thanksgiving. And for everybody else in the world, well, this is shaping up to be a very exciting week. And if you're not watching this on Monday, then some really big news has come out Monday morning, and I put that out instead. But do expect a lot of leaked information, specs, rumors, images, and whatnot coming up over the next couple of weeks, especially this week. Have yourself a great week, and we'll see you again soon.